Tonight, it is such an honor to have someone who I consider to be one of our most inspirational guests to date. He's a Toronto-based actor, artist, singer, songwriter, guitarist, and the frontman for the rock band The Cliks. The Cliks have toured with the legendary Cyndi Lauper, some of you are familiar, and rock veteran Ian Ashbury of the Cult. And in 2006, our guest made history when he became the first out transgender man to be signed to a major record label, and he continues to be one of the most visible transgender persons in the music industry. He's here to share his incredible journey and celebrate the release of the Cliks' brand new CD, Black Tie Elevator. Satin Lounge, please help me welcome the inspirational, courageously gifted Lucas Silveira. Hello.
Hello. Wow, what an introduction.
You are an introduction. I love that you are here. Thank you so much for coming. I am beyond excited to spend some time with you tonight. Your mere existence is an inspiration, sir. And I'd like to go back a little bit to the beginning to get people more familiar with you and your journey. Is that cool with you?
Absolutely.
All right. Awesome. How did you get started in music? What drew you to this art form of expression?
Well, I was born into a very musical family and a family that really loved music. My family's Portuguese, and when I was little, I was born in Toronto, but I moved to a little island in the Azores in Portugal when I was 4, and between the ages of 4 and 10, I lived there, and, you know, everybody there just loved music.
Yeah,
it was
music.
a very small place, and 600 people lived there in my village. Every village had a marching band, so part of what we did, because we didn't have much else, was, you know, just get together and play songs, and it was just a part of celebrating life. So, you know, my dad was a singer, my brother was a musician. It was just something that was brought to me as opposed to me going to it, and it just always felt very natural.
Oh, it's very natural
to be a part of it.
Okay, well, we can tell that it feels very natural when I hear your music. It seems like it's rooted in some tradition somewhere. Like you listen to the influences of old and you incorporate that in your music. I can hear the resonance in your voice. In 2004, Satin Lounge, I want to tell you more about him. He put together a band called The Cliks. The Cliks was an all-female rock group with the exception of you. Is that a pretty decent description there?
Yeah, it originally was an all-female rock group because when I first started the band, I actually hadn't transitioned yet. So that was definitely its original, you know, form, I guess. And then when I transitioned, it became an all-female, with the exception of myself, yes.
Okay. So I'm right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, Satin Lounge, just like 2 years later, the Cliks were very successful. The Cliks had released their first 2 major label projects, Snake House and Dirty King with Warner Music Canada and Tommy Boy here in the U.S. Both releases were very successful. They brought them international recognition. And Lucas, it seems as though you were kind of like at the height of your career when you chose to, you know, publicly announce your transformation. Such a brave step. Can you tell us a little bit more about that particular journey?
Sure. You know, we had definitely had some success as far as, you know, a band of our, you know, background. So it was very, very interesting because with our first record, we sort of, you know, automatically, like you said, we were on this True Colors tour with Cyndi Lauper. So things started happening quite quickly. And, you know, I had just come out as a trans man right before that record, Snake House, was made and released. And it was something very interesting for me because I was transitioning emotionally and psychologically, publicly. So it was a lot of pressure, and I felt as much as I was very happy to to be in the place that I was also very confronted by the fact that I was telling people that I was male and that I was going by Lucas, but, you know, my physical appearance still appeared, you know, female. So it was very, very tough for me to be in that position, in a place that I wanted to be and that I had wanted to be my entire life, and not really being recognized as being male. And it became very, very disturbing to me emotionally to have this public persona where I was telling people who I was, but I wasn't being validated or treated as though I was, and meaning receiving the energy that I wanted. And that really, really messed with my head. And I just became really, really unhappy. Outside of the band and within the band, there was also, you know, problems because of it, because of myself, my unhappiness, and the band's unhappiness for many other reasons. And it just got to a point where everybody was so unhappy, and that was at the release of our second album. And actually the band, for their own, you know, reasons, decided that they were going to leave. Part of it had to do with the fact that, you know, me being transgender was the focus of the band. And I just decided, you know what? They're unhappy. They're leaving. What do I do now? Well, I got to make myself happy too. And I was very unhappy. I'm not a huge fan of, you know, the insides of the music industry per se. There's a lot of exploitation of artists. And with myself, there was that particular element on a very extreme level. You know, everything was about me being trans. And so I just decided, you know what? I'm just going to take these steps. And I actually didn't announce it. I just sort of did it without telling anybody. And as I was going forward in it, everything sort of like fell apart as I was deciding to move through it. And everybody's like, oh, you know, you took such a big risk. You might have lost your entire career. But at the same time, all I could think about was, I'm not happy where I am.
You don't want to lose yourself.
A career if I can't be myself. Yeah, exactly.
What was your support system during that time? Were you, I mean, who stood with you? How did you get through that psychological, you know, turning point?
Well, to be honest, me.
You
know?
Yourself and I, those three people. I get it.
Yeah, I mean, I had a partner at the time that, you know, was very, very supportive at the beginning. But as I began to change and look more male, something sort of switched in her. It's something that actually is very common with people who are with other people who transition. It's very, you know, and I don't blame her per se. It's a difficult thing to see somebody who you know and love and are in a relationship with suddenly becoming somebody else. And there's really no, you know, support system for that. There's really no, you know, my partner is transgender and transitioning, you know, support group that I know of. And so because of that, it became a very, very solitary and a very alone thing. And I also found it very, very difficult to reach out to other trans guys because I'm an artist and I have a very particular sort of like way of being. And you know, nobody told me about the emotional, you know, changes that were going to happen. And that for me was one of the biggest focuses because of the fact that I was an artist, so I pay attention to that. Everybody was always like, oh, you know, I'm growing facial hair and my muscles are growing and all that stuff. But as well as being a singer, I didn't really have anybody to go to. So I had to really do a lot of my own researching and go after people as opposed to people being there for me, you know. But I did have some really, really good friends who stood by me. And but yeah, I think a lot of it was me. And it's not because I didn't have it around me. I think it's just I have the nature of being one of these people who you know, I could do it myself kind of thing. And don't particularly like to ask for help. And I should have, you know, but... Did
you experience the extreme of prejudice from even the community? How did people react to your story, to your journey?
Well, it was, when you say community, I assume you mean the LGBT community?
I am, and let me clarify that. I guess more specifically what I mean is, why do you think transgendered people are so mysterious to everyone, including the LGBT community? I mean, what are some of the misconceptions that you experienced as a transgender man?
Well, I think the greatest, you know, the most common thing that people think is that we're mentally ill. And I think that's, such a horrible stigma because we obviously are not. And interestingly enough, it is that energy that is thrown to us that creates our mental instabilities, because it's very, very difficult to be a person who knows who they are and tell somebody and then have the entire world look back at you like you're nuts.
Right.
And that's when we start going, wait a second, if they think I'm nuts, then maybe I am nuts. And the self-doubt comes in.